Today we're looking at this Alienware X51 Revision 1. Console size, smaller than these two laptops, but what happens when they're neglected for years on end, abused and then left in a cupboard? We shall see as we find out in this week's Autopsy. Now I must confess I have a soft spot for these systems. This is indeed the fourth one I have had, and I have actually made a decent profit buying and selling them. However, I've always wanted one just to keep for myself, something special and nice to keep in the corner. This one has a few issues, so we're going to take it apart and I'm going to show you the common issues that these things have, and hopefully entertain you enough to make you like and subscribe this video. And just a reminder, for every like on this video, a capacitor is saved from exploding in your face. So sit back, grab your favourite humanoid based snack and enjoy. So this is what we're presented with after removing the side cover. The side cover is simply removed by the black screw at the rear of the case just by the I/O, and the panel slides forward, making sure that you don't pull the cable that connects the RGB to the motherboard too tight. The system, as you see here, has been modified to run an SSD as well as a hard drive. This is why it has all this extra cabling on the left hand side and it looks a little bit messy. Now the first thing you'll find when you take these Alienwares apart is this CPU surround. Simply held on by two screws, it draws the air through the side of the case and hopefully out of the back. This is an area that collects a lot of dust, especially on that black mesh part you can see on the right hand side. The fan is not the original fan, as you can tell. This is an area I found that always clogs up with dust. The GPU can be removed by removing this screw in the bottom right hand side and this one at the top, and then simply wiggling and pulling on the PCI. The metal on these cages can be incredibly sharp, and I think I've cut my finger on every single one I've ever worked on. This white tab pushing in allows you to remove the GPU that is fitted. The hard drive is held in by this one screw and then simply slides backwards. This fan at the back is relatively inaccessible, and to remove it you have to remove the front panel, and to remove the front panel you have to strip down half the system unless you've got very small agile fingers. These connectors that you can see here are additional power and data cables that I connected to run a SATA drive. You can simply do this by spurring off of the main board where the fan and the SATA connection go. It consists of two females and one male connector. It can be a bit tight routing the cables in for this adaptation, but it's doable and it provides a big bonus to performance on this system. The only other thing you have to do is provide an additional SATA cable, and there is a spare header on the motherboard. This cable here is the cable that connects to the CD/DVD drive. These drives I find are very temperamental, and every single one I've owned they haven't worked. So I generally tend to remove the drive and mount the hard drive or the SSD on the mounting plate that is left behind. One of the biggest things I've found with these Dell Alienware X51s is the RAM. It is very temperamental with its RAM. Every single problem I think I've ever had with any of these systems has been down to RAM. I suggest you can look up the manufacturer's specs, but generally it tends to prefer RAM that is the same. I have had one with 16 gigabytes in, but it didn't always post, so I wouldn't push it to this limit. This cable here is the front audio connector that runs from the main motherboard all the way to the front panel and then to the front headers. This is where the power brick plugs into the main system. The power brick drops the voltage from mains down to 19 volts, I believe. So you're not going to get any shocks or surprises off of this one, but when doing anything electrical, just be careful. There are several power bricks available for this computer. The most sought after one is the 330 watt one. Now, as you can briefly see here, the PCI slot is right next to the Wi-Fi antennas, and it can be easy to trap these Wi-Fi antenna cables in the PCI slot when you're pushing the graphics card bracket back in. We're now taking out the SATA connector for the hard drive. This is simply held in by 2 screws and is routed through the cable ties back to the motherboard. Now this is the other end of the front audio panel connector that we disconnected earlier. And next to that we have a USB pass-through to the front panel as well. This connector is where the main power comes in from the power connector we disconnected at the back of the case earlier onto the motherboard. The middle board that you can see in this system is the power distribution board, and this can get quite hot, hence why there is a fan on it. The Wi-Fi card is situated just below the CPU, and I've never had an issue with these. They work quite well and they get a good signal. That cable that I just pulled there is the power that supplies down to the CPU in the bottom right hand corner of this picture at the moment. As I mentioned earlier, the CPU coolers can get very choked up with dust and the fans can fail. Hence why this one has got a replacement system fan. I'd highly recommend running these systems with the shroud in place to stop any dust getting into the board, but as you can see later, these boards do accumulate a lot of dust. I've also found that these systems have a habit of drying out the thermal paste, so it's something to check regularly while you're cleaning out the dust. The cable I just removed there is the power supply to the lighting on the left hand cover side case, and the white connector on the right hand side just below it is the one for the rear. As mentioned earlier, this is the CPU connection pass-through wire. Now these little plugs are just basically power distribution to the different PCBs around the system. The top connector is the power switch that locates on the front panel, which also has an integrated light. And then we have the front connector for the front lighting. Although this system uses a proprietary power supply board, the actual cable is just a 24-pin ATX power supply cable. The CMOS batteries, as you can see, are stuck to the back of the LAN port on the left hand side. Now this system does have an issue with the power supply. When resetting the system, it will reset and there is a loud click, but it will reset and reload Windows. However, when you come to turn off or shut it down, it will get stuck in a hang, and I believe that the fault lies with this main power board. Thankfully, all of these boards are clearly labelled as to what the connectors do and where they go. This board encompasses the front I/O connections and the lighting connections for the various RGB around the system. Sometimes these boards can become damaged if people force the USBs into the front too hard. It has the usual two USBs at 2.0s, the microphone header and the line out header. Now, removing these front panels can be quite tricky, especially if the plastic is brittle. The key is just to make sure that the plastic has been in a warm environment so it's reasonably supple, and to gradually ease the plastic's tabs over the lips of the metal panels as we go. This screw here allows us to remove the other side panel on the rear of the case. Most of these panels are meant to be removed by simply squeezing in the clips from the outside, but in the real world that doesn't always work so well. This area also collects a lot of dust as the fan draws it in across the system, but there's no easy way to clean out this front fan, so most people miss it and it gets clogged up. This top panel simply removes by lifting the front leading edge up and pushing it backwards. The lower panel is removed by simply squeezing this clip and moving it backwards, and then squeezing the clips at the front and then moving the panel towards the front of the case as it would normally sit. This can be incredibly tricky and is just as annoying to get back on. Again, this is an area where you get a high build-up of dust. and isn't regularly cleaned due to the difficulty in getting to this system part. And finally we come to the front fan, held on with 2 screws and 2 slots. This isn't the best design in the world, but it does the job. As long as you keep on top of the cleaning, the system runs reasonably quiet. I have happily used one of these systems as my daily driver and would recommend them for anyone getting into mid-2000s gaming. Last up, these are the connections for the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth. They simply screw onto the case and then the wire is routed down to the main motherboard at the back of the case. The 2 screws shown at the top, not screwed into any panel, are the ones for the DVD retraining drive, which isn't fitted to the system. The panel below that is the front panel connectors, simply unscrews and slides upwards. So there we have it. An Alienware X51 Revision 1 stripped down. You can't take it much further than this, and to be honest I don't see why you would. So if you ever see one of these systems in the wild, pick it up. They're well worth it, they're good fun to work on, and they're relatively small to keep. I'm RevTed, this has been Revivify, and I hope you enjoy the video. Please feel free to like, share and subscribe. And also tell all your friends, rodents and goldfish about it. If you like what you see here, please check out these other awesome videos made by myself that YouTube has highly recommended just for you.